Hello, everybody. I want to talk about Stoicism. It has done a lot of good in my life. I first learned about it in secondary school, and I'm trying to remember what the YouTube channel was that I watched, but I can't remember it. He had posted videos about practical exercises you can do, practical Stoic exercises you could do, and some of them revolved around this idea of seeking discomfort, and I took that on straight away. Well, one of the reasons that I was interested in Stoicism is that there was this emperor called Marcus Aurelius, who was a Roman emperor, and I watched this really good lecture on him on YouTube by Michael Sugru. I don't think I'm pronouncing his last name right, but he was a professor, maybe he still is a professor, at an American university, and he has posted so many really good YouTube lectures of him just explaining a philosophical figure. But the big thing that hammered home for me in that video was the fact that this guy, Marcus Aurelius, who was emperor of the Roman world, the whole known world, everything from southern England all the way to Europe, northern Africa, Spain, this vast, and all the way into Turkey as well, just a vast area of land all around the Mediterranean. It was all governed and controlled by this emperor Marcus, and he didn't give in to any temptations, let's call them. He had the power and the say to do whatever he wanted. He could have been a drunk for the rest of his life. He could have just got an advisor to do the difficult errands and ruling of the empire, but he decided to be the best kind of man that he could be in the position that he was in. And the reason that we know about quite a lot of his belief system is because he wrote down in a kind of diary that he had his philosophy. And he put down in this diary things like, "Oh, Marcus, today you're going to get up and you're going to meet frustrating people, annoying people who want things from you, who will always be asking something of you, and you've got to negotiate with them. But don't get angry at them for that, because they're human just like you are." And he always manages to flip any situation into some sort of positive way in which someone can do good and act in a just way. And one of the ideas of Stoicism, one of the core values or core ideas, is this idea that there are things that you can control and there's things that you can't control. And that is a really, really useful thing to keep in mind, because life is not fair and everybody goes through adversity in some form. Everyone experiences a loved one dying at some point in their life, and that phrase is really helpful, the idea that there's things you can control and there's things you can't control, and you shouldn't worry about the things you can't control, because that is when the worry takes over you. and then you can't really live your life to the fullest. You can't be a good, just, kind, respectful person if you're always worrying about things that are outside of yourself, things that you can't influence, that aren't in your realm at all. And it's very hard to do that in this world where there is so much negative media, and there's always a narrative of the Ukraine war happening and the idea that there might be a recession coming soon and all the other bad news, as well as political tensions. I think social media really hasn't done us a good job at all in terms of worrying about things outside of our control. Even Instagram and TikTok gives us algorithms which show us the things which are already in our belief system. They show us the things that we want to see. And that includes celebrities who we aspire to, or other public figures. And that is negative as well, because it can foster a kind of discontent for your own life and just a real negativity about everything, really. And this is where the great part of Stoicism comes in, which is focusing on the other part, which is the things that you can control in life. And I was speaking to someone the other day about this, because I said that, the media is very negative. Certainly, I think the environment isn't doing very well because of our impact on the planet. And, if you go through a list of things, it seems that humans are in quite a bad place as a species. Okay, but then you can't really live your life in a happy, content way if you always dwell on that. What you can do instead is live in some level of delusion and not worry about that. It might not even be delusion, because I accept that there are bad things in the world and that life is hard and that there are people in poverty and other unfortunate things in the world. But that sort of just provides me with a sense of gratitude for what I have in a first world country and encourages me to give everything that I can and try to push myself and fulfill goals and strive for knowledge and other achievements. And I think that is a great philosophy to live by, because if you are nihilistic and you're negative about the world, and it's not necessarily your fault either, because it is these massive companies like TikTok and Meta which are driving these algorithms and social media, and there's so many destructive things which are prevalent at the moment. Our health as a human race is very bad as well. You can see that with the skull records. These are very old ancestors, before processed food became so available, they had great bone structure, really strong teeth, everything like that. And it's because of the processed food and the plastics and other estrogenic substances that are so prevalent. The thing that I take a lot of meaning and contentment from in my everyday life is this constant striving for improvement and seeking accomplishments and striving. And I find that's a much better view than being somewhat nihilistic and worrying about things that you can't control. There's an important concept that I want you to understand. Every goal that you set for yourself, if it is difficult, requires you to suffer. It requires hard work, and it requires discomfort. But there's a distinction between seeking discomfort to achieve a goal, which ultimately improves you in some way, and discomfort which doesn't improve your life in some way. So the Stoic phrase of seek discomfort could be applied to having cold showers or cold plunges, going to the gym and working really hard, or training your mind and building knowledge when you don't feel like it and when you want to have a nap. Those are difficult things because if you don't do them already, you have to change your habits and do things even when you don't feel like doing them. And that's uncomfortable. That is different from other certain types of discomfort which don't benefit you. But I was going to use getting hit by a car as an example, but you can always twist almost anything into being a positive. I mean, if you die, I suppose that would be a negative, but the Stoics see death as a natural thing as well. So, and let's say you do get hit by a car and you lose use of, you can't use your legs anymore. That may lead to something else down the line. You may become a pro wheelchair basketball player. So that is what Stoicism is really all about. It's a universal philosophy for anybody in any situation. The Stoics want you to think about your position in society and who you are as a person and what a person like yourself should do to be a good member of society and a kind one and someone who gives respect to people. Because it's different from profession to profession. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of the Roman Empire, and because of that he felt that he had to rule in the best way possible. He didn't want to be emperor. He was adopted, I think, and then his adopted father died, and then it was led on to him. So he did his duty in a sense. But Stoicism is universal because there is a Roman writer called Epicurus who was a slave. And he still found much content and content for Stoicism. At the moment, I've really been stretching myself mentally to do things which my mind doesn't really want to do, especially checking my phone and giving into impulses. And that's been good because I found that my days have become a lot longer, and my auntie told me about this the other day because we've been on holiday and we've been doing cold plunges every day, whether that's in the garden, when we were staying on a farm they had a plunge pool, or when we were down by the sea on holiday we went for a swim in the sea every morning. And doing those difficult things and then keeping it up and following it up with going for a walk after that in the morning, and just keeping yourself occupied with exercise and board games together and doing natural things, doing different activities during the day as opposed to staying in bed or playing video games. It means that you get really surprised with how much time is in the day if you use each hour wisely. And I think that's largely due to the fact that if you do the same thing every day, you get used to it and your brain is accustomed to that, so time seems to pass faster. That's one unfortunate disadvantage to routines, which I find really beneficial to get yourself up and go to the gym or have a cold shower. But after a while, it stops being as great because you're not... I suppose you need to vary up every now and again to impose that difficulty on it again. Because once it's a really solid habit, the difficulty is somewhat gone there. Although, of course, the benefits will still come. There's a big link to dopamine as well. I know, especially with cold showers and cold plunges and cold exposure in general, although probably not just walking outside in the freezing cold, but putting yourself in cold water and then drying yourself off afterwards has been proven to increase your dopamine. And I think that can be applied to all difficult things that you do. And I think that's because when you do something difficult and you finish a task, you feel, if you've pushed yourself to your limit, you feel proud of yourself. And also in the mundane moments, the everyday moments where you're making your lunch, they feel better than normal because you're not in as much discomfort that you were imposing on yourself. And presence comes along with this too. I've recently stopped meditating religiously every morning, but on bus rides or when I'm traveling in the car or when I'm doing mundane tasks like making some sandwiches, I will focus on my breath and get quite a lot of contentment from that. I really encourage you to try this out, try and push yourself every day. Spend each hour of the day wisely. Make decisions for your future long term that will benefit you. And you can't always just do it in your head and make decisions on the run. You can often get overwhelmed by that because there's so much to think about. It's really helpful to write down what you plan to do. If you try and put a list of good activities together for your day, that's a great start. But you may find that you can't think of many productive things to do. Maybe you think, okay, I'll have a cold shower in the morning, I'll go to the gym, I'll come back, I'll eat lunch, and that's better than my average day. That's great. You should, just start with wherever you're at. And once you're comfortable with that, you should come and do some introspective thoughts, journal, and find out what you want to strive for. What is it that you're interested in? At the moment, I'm really interested in philosophy and learning quite specifically about people in history and philosophers and sociologists, psychologists, just people often who were academics, and learning about their work and what they wrote and what they thought. I find it quite satisfying being able to hear a name, a somewhat well-known name in academia, and understanding the gist of their thoughts. And that's what I'm interested in at the moment. But my interests always move around. I'm fortunate, and I'm grateful that I have that kind of mind where when I'm into something and when I enjoy something intensely, I stay on that for at least a month to 3 months, or maybe even longer, until I've naturally fulfilled that desire for knowledge. Or it used to be when I played video games, I would play a certain game for a few months, then that desire would be fulfilled, and I would move on to something else, a different interest. It may be with table tennis. In lockdown in 2020, I became obsessed with chess and learnt all of the openings and played every day online and really tried to improve at that. And over the last few years, my interests have gone up and down. At times I've been really focused on meditating every morning. At times I've been getting a lot of enjoyment out of going to the gym. Other times it's table tennis. It really changes up and down. But I find that trying to keep the different habits that I have in somewhat of a continuing my habits somewhat is good. The great thing about life, I think, is that there is so much possibility and there is so much that you can achieve. It seems very dreamy to somebody who hasn't started really striving for more and pushing themselves to their limits, because it seems like another world to them. And I believed that too before I fully started being introspective and setting big goals for myself. But for going to the gym, for example, I started and I had a goal of improving my physique, and the difficult things that you want never come quickly or easily. So within the first 2 or 3 months, I had sort of built the habits and I saw a little bit of progress, but not as much progress as I wanted. So I sort of lived in that disappointment but carried on going because I had built the habit. And it happened with quite a lot of different things. I didn't quite understand meditation or mindfulness when I first started it either. And then it comes round and you just continue those habits that you started, even if they don't blossom in the way you would hope them to. And then they come round full circle, and I'm so grateful that I continued doing these things because I feel amazing for it, and I can see the progress I've made in the gym, and I feel present, and I feel content in the moments, and my quality of life has gone up so much. And that's all from dedication, being introspective, learning new things all of the time, trying to remember things as well. It's one thing to learn something in the moment, but so much of what I learn, I forget very quickly unless I try to ingrain it in my mind or at least write it down. And once you have that foundation of, ultimately, once you have a foundation of getting used to doing difficult things and not seeing results straight away but pushing through anyway, once you have that foundation and you do eventually see results, you really feel like you have some sort of superpower. And I feel a bit egotistical when I talk about my achievements in this way, but it's true. I feel really confident in myself because I know that I have changed these different aspects of my life for the better. And then once you have, like I was saying, once you have that foundation and you understand the rewards of hard work and discipline and doing difficult things, seeking discomfort, you can snowball it and carry on getting deeper and deeper or growing more and more as a person. And that is just an amazing thing. So this is ultimately why I wanted to talk about Stoicism and recommend it to you. It's because I've achieved really good results, in my opinion, from doing difficult things and putting discipline in place and doing hard work. And I would highly recommend you do it too. If you don't know what things you want to do or what practices to try, be introspective, write down your thoughts, try to figure it out for yourself, because nobody can give you all of the answers. Everybody is different and has a different mind and a different way of how they understand the world. So, I would recommend going to the gym and doing cold showers. That's really what got me off the starting point. But it may be reading fantasy for you. It could be anything. But I would say change your habits in some dramatic way, and make the habits productive, however you think productive is in comparison to your current lifestyle. That is all I have for you. If you want to learn more about Stoicism, I would read Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. Maybe I'll link that lecture that I watched all those years ago. Michael Sugru on Marcus Aurelius. And yeah, have a wonderful rest of the day. I wish you all the best. Goodbye.